Hi, everyone. I'm Ronan. I think there's a few former students of mine. I used to teach at NSCC. I think how many people are here from NSCC? Oh, wow. That's great. Well, welcome. That's incredible. So welcome to Wattpad. I've been working here about a year and a half now, roughly. And if you're interested, there's a jobs.wattpad.com. Just throwing that out there. Anyway, so what I'm going to talk about tonight is, I should stay on the title, AWS Amplify for Fun and Profit. So what does that mean? The subtitle helps explain it. I'm going to try and show you how I was able to make a Jamstack site using AWS. And my background, I've been in the industry a good while, but I had done a lot of JavaScript. So I'm imagining a lot of you guys are familiar with it too, right? Goes without saying. And React as well was something I had played around with and worked with prior to the college and that. So, but I was hearing about, like I was looking at, say, Wattpad and the kind of stack they have. And I was thinking, well, how do I get into that? And I could see that they were using AWS, and I wanted to kind of get into AWS. So personally, what I try and do when I want to learn a technology anyway is pick a project and work on it myself, right? Something that is close to my heart. And then you're not just doing tutorials, although I did find a really good tutorial, and I have it here if anyone's interested. So target audience, this was on the like wizard of how to make these slides. So these cool people, obviously. And of course, it's AWS, so Bezos, he needs more money, right? Although he's apparently giving it all away. I heard that there lately. So really what I want to target it towards is anyone with front-end experience, particularly JavaScript, of course, interested in exploring the rest of the stack, right? And what does Jamstack mean as well? Has anyone heard that term? It's not as, it was pretty hyped a few years back. But it's still the kind of this cool way. So I'll talk about that. But before I do, I got the mandatory meme slide. What is the show? Parks and Rec, right? And he's like back end, it's JavaScript. Front end, of course, JavaScript. You can do your styles in JavaScript, your CI, your continuous integration, any kind of infrastructure. Believe it or not, also JavaScript. That's not quite true with what I ended up doing, but. It was nice to be able to do the functions that communicate with processing payment and the database in JavaScript, as well, of course, as the front end in React. So what I'm talking about, I'll come back to that in a sec. Get out of that. This is what I'm talking about here. This site here. So I forgot to, in my introduction, in the last few years, I wrote a couple of books, a couple of novels. And one was published in Ireland, this one here, and another one was published here in Nova Scotia, 2 different publishers. They actually, because of the pandemic, they came out within a week of each other, so that was kind of crazy, but it was fun. Anyway, so, being a developer and a big nerd, I said, okay, let's figure out how can I sell these things online, right? So that was the plan there. And like I said, this is a React front end, just to give you, it's what you'd expect, right? Like you go into the book, you add it to the cart, then you do the checkout, and here's a fun thing, and it's not real. It shouldn't render quite so small, but this is actually coming from AWS. So I'll talk about where it's coming from, but you get a lot of this stuff for free. Right? So this is user management, and it ties in nicely with your payment processing. And that's done through Stripe. But so that gives you some idea. I won't go through it all there, but you get the idea, right? It's got all the functionality you would expect. Okay, so let's go back to the slides here and talk about that some more. So just an overview, again. Wanted to learn AWS. Here's some buzzwords to throw at you. IAM, AppSync, Amplify, S3, Cognito, Route 53, CloudFormation, and CloudWatch. So I'm not going to go into all of those, obviously. But part of why I wanted to just rattle that off there is one of the daunting things about AWS is they have all these crazy names for everything, and it's not immediately obvious what they're actually for, right? Like, can anyone guess which one was doing the user management, for example? Does anyone know? Yeah, okay, so I was just thinking, that one's not too bad. But like, Route 53 is for the DNS, right? So, you know. Yeah, I don't know. So I wanted to sell books. It was nice. I had a little, a name card with a QR code that brought you right to the site. And people at the launch were able to buy it right on their phone. And then we could just do it without having to do, we did cash as well. But again, using Stripe. Stripe is great. I know they laid off a bunch of people there recently, but there's a lot of that going on too. But this whole thing, and I should actually, a caveat to this, but the AWS side of it is about $1 a month. So, I mean, if it was selling a lot more books, it would probably be a bit more, but you get the idea. So there's the site. There's the link to the URL. This great guy put together kind of the guts of what it is, and I recommend having a look at that if you're interested. And I found it a great way, entry into AWS, using the kind of JavaScript background I have, and then finding out how to do it on the back end as well, using JavaScript. So we'll do a little show and tell on that. So just to talk about Jamstack, what it comes from is JAM, JavaScript, APIs, and markup, right? So you've probably heard of like LAMP, right? So what is that? Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP, right? And actually, honest to God, Wattpad, some of it still runs like that, right? So, but not all of it. Anyway, so this is the newer way of doing it. And the idea being it's a simpler stack. You don't need all these servers separate from, all that infrastructure. You basically try and keep it all in your JavaScript, kind of like what the earlier talk was showing. And you're just calling APIs. And these APIs can be written in JavaScript, and they can be using a very lightweight technology that AWS gives you called a Lambda function. And I'll show you that. And then the markup is just its HTML. So yeah, it's supposed to be a simple, relatively lightweight framework. In contrast to more expensive, harder to manage traditional stacks, right? So like I said, LAMP, or the newer ones like MERN and MEAN. What's MERN again? Lachlan probably knows. Thank you. What was that one? MEAN. You should have known that. All right. So, and then here's another one: single page application, right? SPA, right? So you can, and the nice thing about this, and I think it's free actually still, is you can use Netlify. You just push it up there, and they give you, it's a nice freebie way of doing this stuff. But so the AWS version of Netlify is called Amplify. And that's kind of the thing that ties all those jargon words I showed you earlier, that ties it all together. So you connect to the back end using serverless Lambda functions. And what they mean by serverless is, effectively, they have the infrastructure can spin up an environment that you can run code on as a back end, and then it spins it down. And it's super quick. And the best part of all is it's generally cheap, it's free, unless you're doing a lot of processing, okay? So, when you're selling books, you're fine. So it can be REST, of course. That would be the typical way of doing it. But just to learn it a bit more, I use GraphQL, and I can talk on that if anyone's interested in it. I can touch on it some more. Stores the data using DynamoDB, so someone mentioned Mongo there earlier. It's the AWS kind of version of that. So a NoSQL database. And I just remembered, if you are a student, there's a student version of AWS you can get for a year. It's I think it's free or whatever. So React is the front end, and Stripe. Any questions so far? right? So let's jump into it. Yeah, this is another slide just showing you, this is the traditional, say, like your WordPress site, right? You've got the web server, you've got some kind of app server, PHP code, you've got MySQL, maybe you've got a CMS back there, that's WordPress, I guess. Whereas Jamstack is a lot lighter. So you're just directly calling out to the APIs, maybe using a CDN, that's what like Netlify or CloudFront will give you. Yeah, so there's a lot to be said for this approach. Here's some more architecture slides, just to kind of, I won't go through all of it, just to give you, there's Cognito when someone is trying to order something. When you see buckets in AWS, it's something called S3, so Simply Secure Storage, I believe it stands for. So the images are there, some of the hosting is done out of there, the assets. Here's the React stuff. Amplify, as I'll show you in a minute, ties it all together. AppSync is for the GraphQL stuff. And then here's the back end. Here are my two lambdas. I have one to make a payment. First I create an order. This should be the other way around. And then I make a payment. And and then store the details in DynamoDB. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. I won't bore you with that. I think I've gone over Amplify enough, did I? Yeah. Okay. Sorry? It's both, right? So the front end is all React, but you guys are super good at that, right? So I just wanted to show you how you can take that and transfer it to the back end if you like. And here's one way of doing it using AWS. Yeah. Any other question? Okay. So, so these are some of the things that are, I can't quite remember what this slide is about, but that's some of the stuff that's there. Okay, let's demo it. Okay, let's stop talking and show you. So I showed you the site. Here's AWS, and just to prove it there, like I have other stuff on AWS. Lightsail is kind of, it's their way of giving you like a EC2 instance, basically a real server, and it's a few bucks a month. But you can see so far this month, Amplify has cost me 9 cents, right? And then there's the tax, so it's pretty cheap. Oh, I'm sorry, beg your pardon. So let's go into VS Code. So here's my project. I'm just gonna go over here. Can you guys see this okay? Maybe it might be better if I did some of it in the terminal. Remind me later. Okay, CD. Let's go one more. How is it doing that? It's hard to do this with holding the mic. Let's go up one more. Okay, all right, so let's go to, some of you are remembering me in NSCC and thinking, oh yeah, he hasn't changed an inch. So let's go into the bookstore here, and I'll try and increase the font, I think, right? I should have done this earlier, I apologize. Oh yeah, okay, let's try that. Command plus is a good idea. There we go. Nice. Okay. So the first thing Amplify gives you is a CLI, right? Nothing. Oh, let me just bring that up a bit. Sorry, the bottom of the screen is cut off here. So, you see that there? Yeah. So Amplify. So you just download. It's like the AWS CLI. Similar idea. So let's do AWS, Amplify info. And it gives you, okay, we won't run an update now. It's status, sorry. So so the interesting thing about the way it works is you can run it locally, but it will also call out to your setup for your Lambda functions. And you can have different environments. This one is currently running as production, but you can have a test environment if you want. Again, all of this, this is typically, you would think, more heavyweight stuff, but it's all pretty cheap, or even free. So what are we looking at here? Here's the auth setup, the resource that we have there. CloudFormation is a infrastructure as code approach. That's how it, stages up everything and tears it down again. It has, the CLI has a wizard that kind of lets you set up these things, right? So I won't go into that. Just to show you, the images are in storage, right? That's there. Here are the two functions I talked about, to create an order, and then the payment processing, and then the API. This is the GraphQL. So here in my VS Code, you can see some of this. For example, there's this one file here that basically sets up the whole, this is effectively like an ERD, right? Just your model of your data. So there's my book class, there's my order, and then the join of the two, it's many-to-many, book order, right? And then down at the bottom, you have a few things to do with the cart and the status of the order, but the main thing is, someone earlier was talking about mutations. Here's the mutation, process order, and here's the actual functions that do that, okay? So it's no fun looking at this in the console or just in code. Being AWS, they have a site to show you. So if I just do Amplify, tab, console, and you have a choice. They have a newer thing called Amplify Studio. It's not that different. I just stick with what I've used in the past, which is the console, Amplify console. So you can see here those things I was showing, the status of each one of those has their own tab, right? Because this is more React-based or front-end based, you can look at the API, say, there's your GraphQL, and view an app sync. Sometimes I have problems logging into this. Let's have a look. Yeah, let's have a look. Run a query, log in. That looks promising. Okay. So, So, I'm trying to see now, list books. Let's see if it'll run for me. I had a better query there, but it's gone on me. Get book. You can see here some of the fields. I think this is what I want. And then if I just do this, there we go. So, there's something messed up there. But you can. I'm not going to waste time on it. It's getting late. But you can see here, you can kind of query your data. That's the whole GraphQL approach. Instead of having to craft a specific REST call, I can mess around with all those fields from that model that I showed you and get back specific portions of the data as I need. And that's the beauty of it. But I just wanted to give you a top level of that one. What else have we got? You can see the user pool incognito there, if you want to check that out. There's the S3 stuff. And here's the stuff you might, again, for someone interested in Java, coming from a front end, looking at how do I do this back end stuff, right? So here are the two Lambda functions, as they're called. So let's look at the process payment one, for example. It's relatively simple. And one of the nice things is it gives you the coding environment right here in the browser. So yeah, it's kind of nice. But I'll show you even nicer in a sec, because you can actually hook it up so that any changes you make in VS Code, when you push them, say to a test branch or a production branch, they will automatically, once it's pushed, there's a hook from GitHub, will push it in here. And then you can see the test stuff in action, try it out. You can see here, I set up the keys from Stripe, from the environment. So the test environment has the Stripe test key, for example, right? But there it is. There's wonderful JavaScript. Basically, we pull out a user, and we see what they had in the cart, calculate the total, and then send it off to Stripe. I forget what the exact, I think it's in the rest of the slides, but Stripe takes a cut of whatever you charge online, right? Which is fair enough. So that's kind of neat, right? There's also a test environment. There's a way of setting up tests. I didn't bother doing that, unfortunately, but there is ways of doing that. So yeah. Let's have a look here. Was there anything else I wanted? Oh, I wanted to just show you that quick demo of how to run it locally. So again, it's with the CLI. You just do AWS. Sorry, I keep calling it. So that's what I use regularly. Amplify serve. So this will be, the front end is running locally, but I could actually, do a regular payment here because I'm running the production one, right? So, but we won't do that unless anyone wants to buy a book. So let's do something simple. I'm going to go in here and let's go into CSS, keep it simple. And what was the example I thought of there today? We had a bit of an issue today, so I didn't have as much time to prep as I was hoping for. Where is it? In the slide. So, oh yeah. So I will change the text decoration on the hero on the front page. The H3, we'll change it to something else. What should we change it to? Uppercase. Okay, let's do that. So back in here. And where's the hero? It's just under this one, I think. Here it is. So I'm going to change this to be uppercase. Was it uppercase? Is it text transform? This text decoration underline. Text transformer, thank you. Guys see, I'm a back-end developer now. I forget all this stuff within minutes. All right, so we'll just do that. Cool. And now we should see that change locally. No? Chrome is forgiving, but let's put that semicolon in. He's getting revenge now. So you can see there, look, the hyperlinks are uppercase. So now let's commit that back into VS Code. And here, demo, commit, sync. And now if we go back to the AWS console, the ticket number, oh yeah. Just remember, I might be on an interview panel or something. No, I'm just kidding. But you can see here, look, it's running the provision part. It's a little slow compared to other technologies, but it's running through it. You can see the output, all that good stuff. So we'll just leave that for a minute and I'll prove it to you, but you can see it worked locally, right? So then, yeah, that's all I really wanted to show. Did anyone have any specific area they'd like to have a peek at? Or will I move on? I just have a few more slides. I think we're getting on in time anyway, so let's just keep going then. Okay, so slide. Lambda is a general technology, but AWS has kind of pioneered it. They're like, there's other versions of it. It's basically a, well, actually, I do have a slide on that. Let me just show you. So React, I think we can talk about that, come back, but Here it is. It's a compute service, and it charges you by like the millisecond or whatever, but it has a very generous free tier before it starts charging. So you have to really use it in volume. The idea is you don't have to set up a server. It's just basically, like it says here, zero admin, right? There's no like patching or anything like that. So that server the server here, quote unquote, is here's the checkout function here, right? It's basically that snippet of JavaScript, right? So I personally find that quite appealing because, and we've used it in Wattpad. Like it's very succinct way of looking, you know, and then you just leave it and forget about it, right? No, it has, I think it has a pooling mechanism. So it has stuff standing by. Did we do Heroku back in the day? I think Lachlan, we did Heroku. Yeah, like Heroku, it had a kind of it would have to, the first call would be slow and that kind of thing. And then it would be fine. But this doesn't have that delay. It's quite performant, right? My experience with Firebase was like as a database on a mobile client, right? But I didn't realize it had that side to it as well. That's cool. But the scaling, it scales quite well. It supports a lot of different languages. So if you know, there's obviously no JS, but you can do Go, you can do Python, so on and so forth. Not all of you don't get the browser IDE for all of them, just the big ones like Python and Node. And you know, very, very cheap. So there's a lot to be said for that. Stripe, you know, there's the pricing there. So they take nearly 3% and then 30 cents per successful charge. So it's not, you know, but I looked around and that seemed to be the most reasonable one. And as a developer, it's very, very easy to use. Like they've great docs and setup was a breeze. Okay, so that's it, guys. Thanks very much.